Synapse definition. Synapse is the junction between two neurons. It is an anatomical continuation, but it is only a physiological continuation between two nerve cells. Classification of synapse. So the synapse is classified into two methods, that is anatomical classification and functional classification. As you can see the synapse structure in the image. Anatomical classification. Usually synapse is formed by axon of one neuron ending on the cell body, dendrites or axon on the next neuron. Depending upon ending of axon, synapse is classified into three types. Axonic synapse, in which axon of one neuron terminates on axon of another neuron. And second, exodendritic synapse, in which axon of one neuron terminates on dendrites of another neuron. And third, axosomatic synapse, in which axon of one neuron end on soma, cell body of another neuron. Functional classification. Functional classification of synapse is on the basis of mode of impulse transmission. According to this, synapse is classified into two categories, that is electrical synapse and chemical synapse. However, generally the word synapse refers to a clinical synapse. Functional anatomy of clinical synapse. Neuron from which the axon arises is called presynaptic neuron, and the neuron on which axon ends is called postsynaptic neuron. Axon of the presynaptic neuron divides into many small branches before forming the synapse. These branches are known as presynaptic axon terminals. Types of axon terminals. So there are two types of axon terminals, that is terminal knobs and terminal coils or free endings. Structure of axon terminals and presynaptic membrane. Axon terminus has two important structures, that is mitochondria, which helps in the synthesis of neurotransmitters substance, synaptic vesicles, which store neurotransmitter substance, synaptic cleft, and postsynaptic membrane. Membrane of the postsynaptic neuron is called postsynaptic membrane. It contains some receptor proteins, small spaces in between presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane is called synaptic cleft. The basal lamina of the cleft contains cholinesterase which destroy acetylcholine. Neuron synapse. So this is the image of the neuron synapse. Function of synapse. Main function of synapse is to transmit the impulses, action potential from one neuron to another. However, some of the synapse inhibits these impulses, so the impulses are not transmitted to the postsynaptic neuron. On the basis of function, synapses are divided into two categories: excitatory synapse, which transmit the impulses, and inhibitory synapse, which inhibits the transmission of impulses. Excitatory function. Excitatory postsynaptic potential. Excitatory postsynaptic potential or EPSP. It is the non-propagated electrical potential that develops during the process of synaptic transmission. When the action potential reaches the presynaptic axon terminal, the voltage gates chemical changes at the presynaptic membrane are opened. Now the chemical ions enters the axon terminus from ECF. Mechanism of development of EPSP or excitatory postsynaptic potential. Neurotransmitter receptor complex causes opening of ligand gated sodium channels. However, the sodium ions from ECF enters the cell body of postsynaptic neuron. Properties of EPSP. EPSP is confined only by the synapse. It is similar to receptor potential and plastic and plate potential. EPSP has two properties. It is non-propagated and it do not obey all or none law. Significance of EPSP. EPSP is not transmitted into the axon of postsynaptic neuron. However, it causes development of action potential in the axon. Inhibitory function. Inhibition of synaptic transmission is classified into 5 types. That is postsynaptic or direct inhibition, presynaptic or indirect inhibition, negative feedback or range cell inhibition, feed forward inhibition, and reciprocal inhibition. Properties of synapse. One-way condition Bell Magendie law. According to Bell Magendie law, the impulses are transmitted only in one direction in synapse, from presynaptic neuron to postsynaptic neuron. Synaptic delay. Synaptic delay is a short delay that occurs during the transmission of impulses through the synapse. Fatigue. During continuation muscle activity, synapse becomes the seat of fatigue along with beta cells present in motor area of frontal lobe of cerebral cortex. Fatigue at synapse is due to depletion of neurotransmitter substance acetylcholine. Summation. Summation is the fusion of effects or projection in Cressy in the excitatory postsynaptic potential in postsynaptic neuron, which may presynaptic excitatory transmission are stimulated simultaneously or when single presynaptic terminal is stimulated repeatedly. Increase EPSP triggers the axon potential in the initial segment of axon of postsynaptic neuron. Electrical property. Electrical property of the synapse are the EPSP and IPSP. Convergence and divergence. Convergence is the process by which many presynaptic neurons terminate on the single postsynaptic neuron. Divergence is the process by which one presynaptic neuron terminates on many postsynaptic neurons. So it is all about synapse.